everyone, and welcome to BEaTS Research Radio, a podcast and YouTube channel dedicated to communicating science to the community. My name is Nicole Chu, and I'll be your host on this episode featuring our very special guest, Dr. Zemin Yao. Dr. Zemin Yao is a recently retired professor in the Department of Biochemistry, Microbiology, and Immunology in the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Ottawa. His research focuses on the metabolism of lipids and lipoproteins and their molecular mechanisms in various diseases. From 2002 to 2013, Dr. Yao was appointed as the chairman of the Department of Biochemistry, Microbiology, and Immunology of the University of Ottawa. In 2014, Dr. Yao was a visiting scholar at Harvard University. Dr. Yao has over 30 plus years of experience in academia, and we are so honored to have him on our channel to join us today. Thank you, Dr. Yao.
Thank you, Nicole, for the introduction. It was very nice meeting you and also be part of your program.
Yeah, we are so happy to have you today. So to start off the conversation, as I mentioned, you are an expert in biochemistry, microbiology, and immunology. So do you mind sharing some of your past research with us when you were still active in research?
Yeah, certainly. The research of my laboratory in the past 30 years or so mainly focused on metabolism and also various diseases and associated with metabolic abnormalities, such as type 2 diabetes. There's a thing called the dyslipidemia, which is the lipid in your blood circulation was abnormal. They call them dyslipidemia, and also cardiovascular diseases. And because metabolism is a very complex and very broad problem to deal with it, and we must adopt multidisciplinary approaches. By that, I mean, you need a knowledge and technologies that are coming from different backgrounds, ranging from biochemistry, molecular biology, cell biology, genetics, and human, as well as animal physiology. So this is what our approach is, a multidisciplinary, they call them. It's very challenging, but it's very rewarding. That's basically what I'm doing in a nutshell.
Wow, that's super interesting to hear. And you mentioned that multidisciplinary aspect with different backgrounds. And you've actually had a background from Shanghai. So do you mind sharing with us your career journey of how you went from Shanghai to becoming the chairman and one of the founders of the BMI department at U Ottawa?
Sure, of course. Again, it was many years ago. I'm just trying to give you a very brief journey that I have across in the past 30 some years. I obtained a scholarship which offered to me from the World Bank. I don't know if you ever heard of that. The World Bank was, that time was is the monetary type of foundation that support a third world country students to pursue their postgraduate studies overseas. So I was very fortunate to obtain that scholarship that allowed me to do my postgraduate studies in Canada. So I went to UBC, University of British Columbia in Vancouver. So I did both my master and the PhDs in the field of biochemistry. So my thesis work was already on metabolism. That time was lipid metabolism, which is trying to understand, how these lipoproteins, HDL, VLDL, LDL, you probably heard or you probably haven't. Those are when you do blood tests, they test you those blood lipids. So that was my master PhD thesis. The project actually was related to fatty liver disease. 30, 40 years ago, that fatty liver disease was not that popular subject, but now, everybody's talking about it. So I was fortunate to have that project with me that allowed me to understand, the relationship between basic science and the clinical applications. So subsequently, I went to UCSF, which is University of California in San Francisco, and did my postdoc training at the institute that was affiliated to UCSF. It's called the Gladstone Institute of Cardiovascular Biology. That is one of probably still the best institutes in North America, if it's not in the world. They are really focusing on clinical research, targeting various diseases. That time was focusing on cardiovascular. Now they are really expanded to neuroscience and Alzheimer's, all kinds of things. But anyhow, I did my postdoc there for 2-3 years. So then I was fortunate enough to be recruited by, back to Canada. University of Alberta offered me an assistant professor position. That really allowed me to start to do my independent research. So as I just mentioned to you, my research has to be multidisciplinary. So I spent actually quite a bit of time to learn cell biology and other disciplines by myself, because your training at the university is always limited. So I only stayed in the University of Alberta for probably just a little bit more than 2 years. Then the University of Ottawa Heart Institute, the one that currently you are working at, they recruit me to be a director of one of the research groups that is just newly established by Dr. Keon, who was then the general manager or CEO, whatever. He was the boss of the institute at that time. So they put together a very, again, multidisciplinary research institute to tackle atherosclerosis, which is a branch of the cardiovascular disease. Atherosclerosis, as you know, is just a narrowing of the blood vessels. If it's in the heart, then it would cause heart attack. If it's in the brain, that it would cause a stroke. So I was very fortunate to work with a group of very talented scientists. Then together, we actually really put University of Ottawa Heart Institute onto the international scene. I would become the leader of the field for many years. Actually, now it's all new people now. But I still think that's one of the best. But as you mentioned in your kind introduction, that 2002, something like that, I was asked by university to be the chairman of the Department of Biochemistry, Microbiology, Immunology, they call it BMI. So the mission or the mandate for me was try to change the landscape of Ottawa University research. So I served as the chairman for 10 years, a little bit longer, 2 terms. I recruit, obviously it's not I and the university together, we recruit up to 18 faculty members into BMI. So that through which we entirely changed the Ottawa research landscape. Now the department became one of the probably top few positions in the country. So this is basically what I've done in the past through my scientific career. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. What an incredible journey. And you've definitely put a lot of effort to achieve like where you have been right now. So if you could turn back time to your very start of your career, what would be one of the most important pieces of advice you would give to an early career scientist?
Well, Nico, that's a difficult question to answer. There are so many factors that are contributing to a successful career. Just if you may allow me just to tell you, if you said one of the most important factor, I would say from my personal experience, I always felt the most important factor for me to be able to do what I've been doing in the past 30, 40 years as a career scientist is a solid and unwavering support from family. So a lot of people probably don't think about that. They always think, you better have a good training, you publish good papers, and stuff like that. But I think the most important part is family. So I benefit tremendously from my family support, particularly my wife. who has been with me for so many years and trusts me. She had a lot of faith on me. As you know, research is not always successful. Experiment mostly are failures. So she is my cheerleader. She always there when I had a downtime. She could encourage me. And later on, my son. So I felt, it sounds pretty strange, but I think that is probably, in my view, or my experience, the most important part is a supportive family. And I'm sure that I believe there's a lot of other successful people who also had experience, present the same kind of sentiment before me. So that would be the most factor. Obviously, there's other things, but for me, that is the most important. Having a good family support. Before you married, have a parent supportive, and when you married, you have a husband or wife support, and once you have children, the daughters and sons, then you definitely would be successful. That's my view.
Yeah, I love that perspective. Having that strong family support system is definitely so overlooked and super crucial. And as you were speaking, your career in academia spans more than 30 plus years. So how during this time do you think scientists can keep their enthusiasm and passion for their scientific research alive?
Yeah, that's another interesting question. I've been asked a lot about that question in my life. Even when I was at the PhD time, they also already asked, why do you want to spend 4 or 5 years to do a PhD, and then a few years at the postdoc, right? I could only tell you my personal experience because, like I said, I was very fortunate to work in an academic setting that is relevant to medicine. So that really gave me a lot of perspectives. Because people, when you're working in the hospital, like Heart Institute or General Hospital or Children's Hospital, then you see patients are dying. So then you suddenly realize, okay, you need to do something to help, if you can. So I have to tell you, my biggest motivation to keep me moving is medicine, is clinical problems. When I went to the rounds and listened to seminars and doctors are talking about all kinds of diseases, some are genetics, some are probably not genetics, and there's no cure or no treatment for those problems, that hurts. So if I could tell anybody that what motivates me or keep me moving is the medical problem. So then, suddenly your personal achievement becomes so insignificant, or your personal ambition, whatever, when you're facing this kind of a challenge. So I think that is how kept me moving for the last 30, 40 years. And I must say that even started when I was undergrad in Shanghai. As you mentioned, I was graduate from Shanghai East China Normal University, is one of the university trained teachers. So my major was biology, but I had a professor who was my bachelor thesis supervisor. So her project was working on lipid metabolism. So I had that interest ever since from that time. So she asked me to go to hospitals to collect patients' blood samples. That's where I learned hyperlipidemia, which is super high cholesterol and triglycerides in the blood. So when I asked my professors what is the reason for this kind of a problem, she said, we don't know. Oh, I said, well, that would be interesting to figure out what is that. So I have to tell you, this is what I always stay in the hospital or research institute that is affiliated to hospital, because I wanted to know what the problem is. So once you have that kind of mindset, earlier on in your undergrad or training, so that really is a driving force. Yeah. So that's what I was still working on research. Well, I'm not doing research anymore because I retired, but I'm still involved in clinical investigations in the process of developing therapies with my previous students and postdocs, and something like that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. And yeah, having that human connection between a patient and seeing really how your work can apply to and impact their life is truly super, super inspiring. And I can definitely see the passion from your work. Yeah, so thank you so much, Dr. Yao, for joining us today on this wonderful discussion. And we hope that our listeners at BEaTS Research Radio left with very inspiring mindsets. And on behalf of our director, Dr. Emilio Alarcon, and our entire BEaTS Research Radio team, we thank you all for tuning in, and we hope to see you all next week.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.